Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are here with the Wiggle King in his other state, which is the Sleepy King, Delray, and his partner, Erika. So we're just going to wait a minute or two here as everybody gets dialed in. We're just watching the numbers go up as everybody kind of gets into the call. So... And Delray says, "Oh, this is my moment. I should do something." Oh
He's
my
just
God.
deciding whether he wants to be on his right shoulder or his left shoulder. It's big decisions.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm going to turn my butt to the camera." Attaboy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like,
He's
"This is
like, this is the time to put my butt at the camera, right?
right." Well, people did come to see my wiggle, so let's just turn the butt to the camera. There we go. I love how you got all set up, and he was perfectly still for the whole pre-call, and now he's
Yeah,
let's
that's how
reel
we
it.
do that.
Attaboy.
Can you
So
still see him well enough?
yeah, I can see him great. So
Okay, great.
yeah, handsome boy. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, "I'm very sleepy, and now I have something stuck to my tongue." What on earth, buddy?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Oh, and you even have a spot on your tongue. Forgotten about it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So for those of you that have joined in, again, this is Erika and Delray, and you will notice in the bottom of your screen a Q&A box. So please feel free to type in that Q&A box where you are tuning in from, but also throw some questions in there so that we can find out more about Erika and Delray and give them lots of questions to answer. So welcome Lise and Vicky and Keith. How about a wiggle? We did talk about that early on the call. Apparently Delray's wiggles are reserved for outdoors, which is fortunate because I can't imagine that cyclone inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
So you will all just have to go and follow Delray on Facebook and Instagram to see the famous wiggles. This is a whole other side to him that we don't often get to see. So we're going to get started. Erika, tell us a little bit about how you came to be a PADS client and got matched with Mr. Delray here. And I know it's a little bit of a different story. So,
Well, hi everyone, and thank you, Tara. And we're both really excited to be here. Delray is so excited he may have a puppy dream. That's how pumped he is. He's around the cameras a lot, and I think that maybe they're not. He doesn't realize how many people are admiring him right now. If he did, he'd be showing a lot of energy because he loves that engagement. So Delray and I met after I applied to PADS for a pup, because what we did in EMS is we recognized that there might be room for a canine based support program. And we did actually quite a bit of research. It took us about a year before we applied to PADS. And then we decided to go with an accredited facility dog based on that research, recognizing that would be the best fit for the program we were looking to do. And then we applied to PADS and continued to do our research and development of our program. And when Delray became available about a year and a half later, we were so excited to welcome him into what was now already called the PAWS program. So Delray and I met in July of 2017.
awesome. For those that aren't familiar, can you tell us what EMS stands for?
Yes, that means emergency medical services. So it's the people that are working on your ambulances. That also includes, in Alberta, our call takers and our dispatchers that answer the phone when people dial 911. And then it also includes all the people that make that possible in uniforms and fleet. And it takes a whole bunch of people to help an ambulance go down the road. So that's all included in EMS.
Nice. So your program working in Alberta was, we think, the first of its kind, yes?
Yes, there's no other programs that are using accredited facility dog to work with exclusively with staff. So we're a peer support program. We don't work with the public very much. I'm a paramedic, and we focus on supporting the psychological well-being of other EMS staff.
All right. So tell me why the program was necessary in the first place.
Oh, well.
It may seem obvious, but I think that I think it'd be interesting to hear some of the challenges, and maybe particularly where Delray plays a role that maybe humans couldn't. What does that look like?
Right. So particularly, we need support programs that focus on psychological health and emergency services because this is a job that is more challenging than, because you're exposed to some really uncontrolled and chaotic events that are a little different than having a predictable workplace. And that can be really hard on a person over time. You're often showing up for someone's worst day, and that's every shift that you work. So over time, that can actually take a toll. And we are in Alberta Health Services, we're recognizing that that toll is showing. And for a long time, it's been obvious we need more resources. So Alberta Health Services has developed several new resources, and one of them has been this program with a canine. The reason we did it this way is because the human-animal bond, most people on the line will already know this, but the human-animal bond is proven to really help humans connect and to, they can be a critical part of the healing process. There's quite a bit of science behind actually that we see about how we heal from injury, psychological injury, often called trauma, and also the influence an animal could have on that healing. Whether you're a kid or a teenager or an adult, this can have an influence that's really helpful. And I won't get into the science because that'll just take up the whole call. That's what I'm really passionate about, is the science. But I think people intuitively usually understand that there's a lot of value in having an animal present when you're having a difficult conversation.
Nice. I think so. I'm going to pause here and just because we've got some more new people on the call. We're just here with Erika and Delray, and talking about the work that they do with Alberta EMS. And if you have any questions, you can type those questions into the chat box, the Q&A box. If you click on it on your screen, you can type questions in, and then we will answer them live. But I'm gonna touch on the science piece as well a little bit. I know it's where you geek out, and I know you could talk about it all day, but tell us a little bit, because you're also doing something with Delray, a project with Delray around working dogs and kind of the science around them a little bit that I know we at PADS are really excited about. So maybe just tell people a little bit about that.
So I think what you're referring to is we have a research ethics board approved study that we're doing to assess if there's value in the pause program, which means that me as a specialized, I have specialized training in trauma-informed peer support, basically, and Delray, is there value to staff from engaging with us? How do we measure that value? So it took us a good 2 years to get this research study completely put together and approved. And then we actually are now completely on hold. It may be delayed at least a year because of COVID. So we're a little sad about that. But there's two big components of the study. One is to measure the value to staff through a validated survey. And the other really important part is to measure the impact of these activities for Delray. And the way that we're doing that is we're going to measure cortisol, which is a hormone that's associated with stress. It's also a totally normal hormone. We all have it. We need it to rise every morning and fall throughout the day. But when you have a lot of stress, cortisol can be bumped up and it can stay elevated. So we're going to measure Delray's cortisol, but that standing alone isn't a very good number by itself. It needs to be put into context. So we're going to also include that with a behavioral assessment. So we'll be recording Delray, and then we'll be coding his behavior. And then finally, he wears a collar with a little box on it. And this is actually just a fit bark. And we used to have a whiz bang collar from Pet Paste, but it just wasn't robust enough to work in our environments. It needed a really controlled environment. So all this does is measure his movement. How much was he moving through the day? So we're going to use those three metrics and combine them, and hopefully get a picture of how Delray is affected by the work over time. So, and in the short term and in the long term.
That's very cool. And I think it's exciting too to have a study like that happening in terms of validating the work itself, in terms of rolling out new programs and getting funding and all those kinds of things. It's one of the things kind of in our industry, we see the benefit, but I think when you're out there doing kind of actual research studies that wind up down the road, getting peer reviewed, et cetera, it adds a huge level of validity to the work. So not that there is any question that he does amazing work. Um, so we have a question from Carol Ann, who's one of our clients in Victoria. She says,
Okay.
hello from Victoria. Thanks for providing this very needed service. Bronx, my service dog, wants to know what favorite toys Delray likes to play with when you're off duty. Sleeping seems to be an important hobby too for service dogs, I think.
Okay. Well, Bronx and Delray can also compare notes beyond the quick ones, but let's see. I just I had a toy on top of my dresser I pulled off yesterday. It had been up there for quite a while. I forgot about it and he went nuts. So I know for sure he likes this flat 3-piece boomerang by a really popular dog company. I just don't see it here. Anyway, it had a squeaker in each end. It was yellow and it was kind of small. He loves that thing. And so I know that's one of his favorites, even though it was hidden for a little while. As soon as it came out, he was like, oh my God. And then he also loves to play a little bit of tug. So we have a homemade fleece tug toy that's really safe for Delray's mouth, and he loves that. And then, oh, when we're out working, he's got a couple toys that he's just got to pick them up to say hello. And so we keep those in the work truck for when we go to work. And they're mostly like by like West Paw, and there's one like little blue bone and one little donut. Anyway, there's a long list of things that he loves to play with. So maybe Bronx has some notes for Delray.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. They all seem to have kind of their favorites that just get them cranked up. So um
Oh, and he loves a wooba. Sorry, he loves a wooba.
yes, those those I think are top of the fun list, aren't they? The fuzzy
Yeah.
ones especially. So so tell me a little bit about why you touched on this at the beginning, why you went with an accredited facility dog as opposed to down some other path.
Well, we didn't really know what we were doing when we got started, so we started researching what breed would be best, and we were just, that was just the early days. And then as soon as we started doing research and talking to other handlers, it became clear very quickly that we needed to have much more of a plan because others have worked with dogs that weren't as well prepared, and it's less reliable that the dogs can handle the workload. So once we learned about accredited facility dogs and talked to some of those handlers, it was very clear that this is what we were looking for. We were looking for a dog that is pretty consistent, won't be unduly stressed by the work. And if they are stressed by the work, that we have support. So being with a school that raised the dog was critical to us because the insurance is nice, but really I access the trainers regularly. Delray and I are so well supported. And I love knowing that if Delray decides that this isn't a fit for him, he'll never be encouraged to work a day that he is not wanting to. And so those were the factors that really drove it home that accredited facility dogs were really the only appropriate choice for our program, because it's when we know the dog is healthy and safe, then we know we can engage with our staff, and the staff are never going to have to look back and think that they benefited from a dog that wasn't enjoying the session as much as they were. So it works best for the dog, works best for the humans, works best for me as a handler. I needed all the support I could get, and I got it. So
Yeah. And I think that's one thing. And it's interesting because I know we have some other clients on the call as well. I think the other thing with the school that has been neat to watch over the years is also once those dogs start to kind of slow down and kind of show us that, retirement is kind of coming, is that ability to be able to provide that continuity for your people of, when you get to that point in Delray's career, that there's going to be another dog kind of coming down the pike, and you're not going to, I think about Kim and Caber this year, or well, last year when Caber retired and Puma kind of stepped straight in and kind of took over. So there was a pretty seamless transition. And I look at how much your program has grown in the past couple of years since you guys started working together, just seeing the impact that you have, if it was a dog that you had trained yourself or gotten from, a breeder or something like that, that you'd be starting over from scratch. And, does that put pressure on Delray to keep working and things like that when maybe he shouldn't be? So that's a cool piece of the puzzle as well. So anybody that's listening that has any questions, feel free to just post those in the Q&A box, and we will try and answer them for you. I had one other question. Now I'm just blanking because I completely forgot. Oh, you have also done some other things with the PODS program, other connection points. I've seen some photos over the years. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the role that the PODS puppies play in Alberta EHS?
Yes, this is super exciting. So we recognized that we wanted to provide more education to our staff about why it's important that Delray is a working dog. And we realized that the puppies could benefit from this interaction. So it all came together in one day or a couple days of conversations with the trainers out here and some of the volunteer handlers. And we are doing PADS education and puppy play sessions. So that's a PEP session. And we go at a predetermined date and time for, I think, an hour and a half, not right now because of COVID. But when we are not physically distanced from others, we go to a station and we go with, anywhere from, I think we've had a minimum of 4 up to 6 dogs at various stages of training, and they're spread out through the room, and staff can just come on in and learn a little bit about each of the puppies and kind of get an idea of what they think the dog would be good at when it comes time to graduate, and basically just get a big morale boost from walking through, but also learn a little bit about the incredible work that goes into raising these dogs. The volunteers are definitely people that need to be explained so that people can understand what really happens behind the scenes. It's a big deal. So that's what the PADS education puppy play sessions are, sharing puppies and telling them about the story of their journey towards graduation.
That's super cool. And you touched on a little bit, do you want to tell us a little bit about how COVID's impacted your work over the past few months? I know it's impacted everyone, but what does this normal look like for you two right now?
So what we've adjusted to is, because we're in healthcare, actually, it's been quite fortunate. We're given mandates to work at a distanced location, so we've been able to do that. And we also then changed our deployment model drastically because there's not a lot of information yet to go on. So I think it's really hard for everyone, and all handlers are making their best decisions within their own models. For us, we have now started developing a new type of deployment called pause and practice. And we'll go to a station, Delray's on site, but he is distanced. And then we have a couple activities that staff can come in, like learn a little bit about some psychological regulation tools that you can use during the workday or to transition from work to being off work. And yeah, so we just show up and then they can still see him and get a lot of value out of that, but there's less touching. And then that way we're trying our best to keep both Delray and staff safe.
Yeah. That must be hard though. I can see how people are like, it's Delray, but we can't touch. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And staff have adjusted really well. They've, people take it in stride, but it's definitely, I think everyone's feeling there's a huge layer of extra stress on our staff. Every call is different now. There's quite a bit of different requirements on them, and that's what we really care about the most. So we did start doing some online engagement, but it's really tough for staff to get online because they're busy at work. So it's been a huge learning curve for us to also look to readdress how can we meet staff needs in new and creative ways. And we're still learning as we go for sure. But being on site has been valuable, but you also, you can see that Delray's like, my wiggle's even better when you can touch me. So we hope we actually do have some plans in place that are evolving here to do some contact in a controlled way. Yeah.
So we have a question from Renee, who actually I think is from the Minneapolis area, and it sounds like they have an EMS program as well. So she said, since our EMS dogs started, we've had large increase in our clinicians getting dogs for their homes. They approach the handlers with questions about dog raising. I think the clinicians are seeing the value of animals. Have you noticed this with your program?
Well, hi there, and thanks for being here today. And I do think I have most commonly heard that it re-ups the value of planning time with their pets that are at home. I don't know about an increase in getting pups. Our our province is so big that I don't get enough repeat contact to hear this change. But people do often call me and say, hey, we got a dog. So I guess I do get that call quite a bit, but I don't know if it's always because they enjoyed Delray. But I do hear a lot that people are like, oh, I guess we could get a black lab. So he's a poster child for black labs. So definitely an increase in appreciation and value and recognition of the human animal bond that's available right in their own home, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and it's interesting actually because, it's funny how, the black labs sometimes get a bit of a bad rap. There's more black dogs in shelters than any other color, and there's, I know certainly, we've had requests when people apply for dogs, that just because of the cultural mix of the community that they work in, that they're looking for like a lighter colored dog because there's often fear surrounding black dogs. So it's always exciting for me when I see some of our black labs. I have to confess, they're my favorite too. Just really going out and kind of breaking out of those stereotypes of, black dogs are scary. It's hard to think that that snoring lump behind you can be perceived as scary, but he's definitely found his fit. So
yeah, we actually have had a couple neat incidences where people watched him from afar, people that were in our work environment, and eventually approached me and said, I've had an incident with dogs and I found him really scary but now I've watched him work and I wonder if I could meet him. So that's happened several times. And I feel like that's a pretty cool bridge that Delray's able to build just by being himself.
yeah. Merlot, who's in Saskatchewan, lived with me when she was a puppy, and I was going to university at the time. And I remember just really distinctly this. So the university I was in, every class, there was somebody that was afraid of a dog, it seemed. But I remember this one semester, one poor girl had every class with me, and she was for dogs. But I will never forget the last day of the semester, she came up to me and she said, I just wanted you to know I got a dog because of Merlot. Like, I have been afraid of dogs my whole life. And she convinced me that they're not scary. So, and now I have my own. And, I look at that and I think sometimes these dogs, when we take them into an environment where sometimes people don't have the choice, right? So in that situation, she was allowed to be there. She was with me. The student really didn't have a choice, but she also had never allowed herself to be around a dog for a period of time because her fear kind of took over. And so in this situation, I mitigated to kind of make it as easy on her as possible. I sat on the opposite side of the room, but poor girl had to go from class to class with me. And I'm sure at the beginning of the semester, that was really hard. So I imagine when you're going in and working with your people as well, that just being able to see a dog like Delray interact with others and just how gentle he is and fun he is would be very cool. So there's a note here from Mike Edgar, who is a big fan of Delray. So it says, hey, Delray, your mom, Tully, says hi. She's very proud of you and your work. She's also impressed with your super cool human. So I just thank you so much for that, Mike. And Mike and Sam are longtime volunteers in Calgary. I've lost track of how many dogs they've raised, but they raised Tully, Delray's mom. So, and actually his sister Keys as well. So yeah, very, very cool. So, well, realizing that time has gotten away from us a little bit here. So I'm just going to put out one last call. If there's any last minute questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A section there. But thank you both so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Delray, you've been extremely lively, have lived up to your reputation as the Wiggle King here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made, yeah, it's not easy to, yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to be a dog, isn't it, Delray?
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I have to say, it's kind of neat too to see the other side of Delray, because he is quite the party boy. He loves to have fun, but it's also kind of cool to see what he's like in his downtime and just kind of chilling in his house. So that's very, very cool. So, well, thank you both so much.
We got dressed up, but that didn't change the need for a nap. So
he's like, well, I can sleep with my clothes. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for everybody that's watching right now, you can join us next week. We're going to do something very different we haven't done before. We're going to be doing an interview with Christy and Hayward. Hayward is a PADS puppy in training that went on to be a VIP, or very important pet, with a family that has kids with disabilities. And so Christy is their mom and is going to come on and talk a little bit about the impact that Hayward has had in their world. So we're excited about that because that's an interview we haven't done before. And this video, if you want to share it, will be published on the PADS website on Erika and Delray's post on the Tune In Tuesdays page. You can also give Erika and Delray a follow at, and I'm going to make you say it so I don't get it wrong, on Facebook.
At Delray Paws.
Delray Paws, and then on Instagram as well.
At Delray Paws. Yep,
yeah,
same.
same.
And thanks, Mike. Hi, Telly. Delray loves it when he gets to cross paths with his mom. So hello.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you both so much for joining us, and thanks everybody who tuned in, and we will see.
Hi, Dawn.
Oh, and Dawn says hi. Hi, Dawn. Nice to see you on here as well. So we will chat with everybody next week, and thanks so much for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Delray says bye, and thank you so much, Tara. Thank you, Lonnie, for the translation. And Delray says, I'm sorry I missed it.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.